Alaska Hirlock. When I speak to the big multinational employers, many of them in Blanchardstown, in my own constituency, they tell me that one reason they continue to locate in Ireland is because they believe the country is committed to the European Union. We have punched well above our weight when it comes to attracting foreign direct investment into Ireland. One of the reasons companies like Google and Facebook locate in Ireland is because they see Ireland as a committed member of the Eurozone. In a globalised economy, the Eurozone is an important financial region with a very large population of well over 400 million. And in multinational and foreign companies are interested in a presence in the Eurozone, and they're interested in a presence in Ireland because of the attractions that we have to offer being part of the Eurozone, and also attractions such as our corporate tax rates. And the fact that we're English speaking and we have a large number of very well educated young people. I firmly believe that voting yes in this referendum will show that Ireland is willing to play its part in building a more financially stable European Union and Eurozone. Voting yes to the treaty will help stabilise the euro and boost investor confidence in Ireland. To vote no would bewilder American and other foreign companies that are planning their European investments. It could threaten the hard-won business opportunities we are building in China and elsewhere. There is a very big advantage of staying the course with Europe. For starters, collective action to boost growth and investment offers a much better prospect to restore the health of national budgets than sole reliance on austerity. Our previous experience as a country of such joint European action through, for instance, the regional and social funds was almost entirely positive. Our roads and colleges are the legacy of those funds that we continue to enjoy today. Ireland is not alone in its current troubles. Bank debts and unemployment haunt many European economies. There is a lot more to be done to help beleaguered countries like Ireland and Portugal and Spain, but I firmly believe that we are far better off making that case along with like-minded governments inside the European tent than being a lone voice outside. This government has put painstaking effort into rebuilding Ireland's reputational capital in Europe, in the USA, and the emerging global powerhouse that is China. There are some indications that this effort is bearing fruit, notably in the confirmation by leading international companies that Ireland continues to be as much a magnet for inward investment as it was a decade ago, even despite our very severe economic difficulties. A no vote could upend that process. Countries don't have friends, they have interests. This is particularly true of a small country that has successfully chosen to base its development and prosperity on being a trading nation. It is in our interest to be inside every European Council, committed to national budget discipline, as one significant but far from exclusive part of a strategy to promote growth and job security in every corner of Europe. It is entirely contrary to our interests to take a reckless gamble now that would leave Ireland isolated, would perplex our friends, and exasperate those who are currently funding our state till we restore our capacity to do so ourselves. We have seen where reckless gambling has taken us, and we do not want to gamble our future again. We are currently borrowing in the region of 50 million a day to plug the gap between what we raise in taxes and what we spend. There is no escape one way or the other from the fiscal restraint in our present situation, and to pretend otherwise is dishonest. Voting yes gives Ireland a safety net in terms of access to a special European assistance fund if needed. A no vote may give the appearance of independence, but it could require Ireland to negotiate emergency funds that might have tougher conditions attached. I've lived in countries where there was a default, and all I can say to you, it is not an experience I recommend to anyone. They say truth is the first casualty of war. Experience tells us that truth is also a casualty of febrile political campaigns, and that is particularly true of European referendum campaigns in Ireland. Well, here is one inconvenient truth that will be as valid the day after the referendum count as the day before, no matter what the result of the people's vote is. I repeat again that Ireland is presently borrowing about 50 million a day. That cannot go on indefinitely. Voters have to decide if they want Ireland to have continuing, although conditional, access to European funds while we work our way through the tax changes and spending cuts and changes to eliminate this deficit and restore our independent capacity to fund ourselves again in the longer term. I know that we will experience a barrage of posters that will urge us to vote no to austerity, as if voting no could magically halt the austerity juggernaut in its tracks, or reverse the disastrous bank crash and construction crash. I believe that it is irresponsible to hold out the false hope that austerity can be avoided in a country that is so highly indebted. If we vote no, we will not have access to the European Stability Mechanism, which provides a helpful backstop in the form of an additional line of credit. In the absence of access to such a credit line, we would have to move even more rapidly into a balanced budget situation involving adjustments far in excess of the tumultuous budgets of recent years. I have to say that, particularly as Minister for Social Protection, responsible for spending over 20 billion, even in this time of austerity, and conscious of how many people in the country rely on the support of social protection. I think that voters would not forgive us for advising them to vote no, given that voting no would result in even more severe austerity and leave us without an important safety net. This, of course, leaves voters this year in a classic catch-22 paradox. A yes vote gives us a reasonable guarantee of access to funds, although under very strict supervision. A no vote may give the semblance of independence, but it will require Ireland to negotiate emergency funds that will have identical, if not even more onerous, scrutiny provisions. There is no escape, one way or the other, from fiscal restraint in our present situation. There is no honest, realistic choice in front of voters this year that offers an easy escape from unpalatable budgetary measures. To pretend otherwise just leads the country straight into a cul-de-sac. Just this week, the Taoiseach and the IDA announced that US pharmaceutical company Mylan was expanding in Dublin and Galway with the creation of over 500 jobs. It already employs over 700 employees here. US companies like Mylan, PayPal, Sky and Facebook locate in Ireland for a number of reasons, including access to the EU market and the Eurozone. That's the critical thing that I think people need to think about, that the Eurozone is a very important regional market in a globalised economy. Mylan ranks among the leading generic and specialty pharmaceutical companies in the world and provides products to customers in approximately 150 countries and territories. These are the kind of companies that Ireland needs to continue to attract, and we need to attract foreign investors who, I am absolutely confident, prefer to invest in countries that are at the core of the European project. This really, I think, is one of the most important considerations that citizens have to think about as they try to decide whether or not and how to vote in this referendum. Tomorrow, I will be visiting the Employment and Advice Fair in Wexford. There will be 400 jobs available from both local and international companies like Zurich Insurance. I want to see more of these international companies choosing Ireland. I believe that voting yes to the Treaty on Stability, Coordination and Governance in the Economic and Monetary Union will show that Ireland is willing to play its part in building a more financially stable European Union. There is a mighty advantage of staying the course with Europe. The signals from every corner of Europe is that collective action to boost growth and investment offers a much better prospect to restore the health of national budgets than sole reliance on austerity. Such a pro-growth agenda should incorporate initiatives to relieve the cost of bank rescues, a particularly onerous burden on Ireland, but a vital ingredient in a general mix to assist, for example, Spain. Bank debt is not exclusively an Irish issue. The arrival of Mario Draghi as the head of the ECB has significantly changed many aspects of that institution's attitude. There is a lot more to be done to help beleaguered countries. I believe we are far better off making that case along with like-minded European governments inside the European tent rather than being a lone voice on the periphery. As we have established in the course of the past 12 months, reputation means everything in the modern world. Political scientists call it soft power. It is the capacity to influence events and policies in the wider world that arises from the respect that is earned by national efforts and sacrifices to overcome a crisis. I represented the government in New York. I think I attended about 40 different events and venues. That was a really strong message that came across, which was very complimentary to the Irish people, that we were doing our best to overcome the crisis. I read in today's Irish Times opinion poll that 30% said they were likely to vote in the referendum on May the 31st, 23% of people said no, and 39% were undecided, and that 8% said that they would not vote. That's a lot of people who have yet to make up their minds. Earlier today, the Taoiseach, the Dishonest and the Minister of State for European Affairs launched the Government Stability Treaty online public information campaign and website. This is the first part of what I promise will be a very vigorous and informative campaign. We will be posting a personal copy of the treaty to every household. The European Stability Treaty is about 10 pages long. I would really urge every citizen to read it for themselves. But let me tell you a very short summary of what I think the latest European treaty is about. It's about the health of the euro in your pocket and the need to put it on a long-term stable footing. It's about ensuring that foreign employers continue to invest here. It's about having an insurance policy that gives this country access to a special assistance fund if we need it. And it's about adopting a policy of good housekeeping, which this country badly needs at this moment. The financial crisis that began in the US in 2007 and arose from US banks selling products to European banks, right? And it crashed against our shores with a vengeance, culminating in the intervention of the IMF in 2010. It has now truly moved from the periphery of the Eurozone to the centre. The very existence of the euro has been questioned by governments and markets. And one thing I think people need to take into account is that there are those on both the extreme right and the extreme left who have never been in favour of the development of the euro and wouldn't mind and might even be pleased if the euro were to go down. In this way, Ireland's problems, though, are now the shared problems of all Eurozone and EU member states. We are living in historical times, and while we all watch with anxiety and react to the latest dramatic developments in the Eurozone debt crisis, we also need to stand back and think about the broader macro trends and historical forces that are behind the multiple crises of the past 4 years. When we do this, we see that the unifying factor is change. Change in the balance of power in the world economy from west to east, change in the relationship between markets and states, and change in the speed at which events unfold. The question for politicians and citizens in all European countries is how to preserve the European way of life, our cradle-to-grave welfare state, and the inherent decency and democracy of our nations and our union in the face of such world historical changes. For truly the onus is on all politicians and citizens in Europe to accept that in order to preserve and protect our way of life, everything will have to change. And now is the time to start changing for the better. Europe needs an entirely new approach to economic development, innovation, competitiveness, and how the welfare state is funded and delivered to our citizens. We need to radically change the relationship between states and markets. If the events of the past few years have taught us anything, it is that markets have become too powerful relative to states. Markets are supranational, while regulation remains national. I mean, a 28-year-old with an MBA from Stanford or Harvard, is on the markets every half hour. A second or 2 minutes is a lot of time devoted to Ireland. That's the way the markets are working now, and we have to take that into account. Governments react, political parties react by having daily, weekly meetings. European institutions react by having weekly, fortnightly, monthly, quarterly meetings. The markets and the way government is managed and politics is managed are in two different time frames, and politics hasn't caught up. But we need to go further and fundamentally change the nature of finance so that it ceases to be socially useless, as the chairman of the UK Financial Services Authority, Adair Turner, said last year, and becomes instead a catalyst for the development of the real economy, technology, small business, infrastructure and employment. This will also require greater funding for public investment at EU level. We need to change, as I said, radically the nature of and timing of political decision-making. Time and again, the current crisis has exposed the variable speed of democracy and markets. Even if we succeed in restraining the velocity of market activity, we will need a fundamentally more efficient and certain method of political action. I want to say I agree with Professor Sean O'Rian from NUI Maynooth in today's Irish Times that the Stability Treaty will help stabilise the euro in your pocket and help stabilise the banking, bond and stock markets. I agree even more strongly when he says true recovery will require, and I quote, will require European government and institutions to rediscover their historical taste for constructive politics and building European solidarity. Voting yes in the referendum is an important milestone on that path. And just to say to the speakers from the Sinn Féin party, I was in the United States recently. I noticed the efforts that were made there, and absolutely legitimately, by people from both parties in government there, including Sinn Féin, to promote Northern Ireland as a location for investment. Well, can I just say that in promoting Ireland, we really have to consider the advantages of us being in the Eurozone in terms of attracting really important mobile foreign investment that is one of the critical engines for the growth of this economy, both north and south. And for that reason alone, I think voters have to give every consideration in their wisdom to voting yes to this treaty.
Thank you, Minister.